He just wanted to fix his fence, but 5 alien widows knocked, asking if his land still had mercy. The wind blew softly over the red fields of Taros 9, a lonely planet far from Earth. Dry dust danced in the air as Raylan walked slowly along the edge of his farm. He wore an old leather coat, torn at the sleeves, and his boots were covered in dry soil. His hands were rough, his eyes tired. He was the only human living on this land. He stopped near a broken fence post, looked up at the purple sky, and sighed. Another season. And no help. The crops were too much for one man. Tall vines, fat root fruits, and heavy blue leaf bushes covered the fields. Machines helped, but they were old, always breaking down. Raylan needed hands, living, breathing, working hands. That night, in the small wooden shack he called home, he sat in front of a blinking screen. The light flickered as he typed out a message. His fingers hesitated before pressing send. Help wanted, farmhands needed. Food, water, and shelter provided. No ID required. No questions asked. Location, Sector 9, Taros 9. Raylan Voss. The message went out across the interplanetary worker network. It flew through satellites, passed through trade zones, and scattered like seeds in the wind. Raylan leaned back and closed his eyes. He didn't expect much. Maybe some drifters. Maybe a thief or two. Maybe nothing at all. 3 days passed. No messages. No visitors. Then, on the 4th night, something strange happened. Raylan's dog, Basco, growled low from under the table. The wind outside had stopped. The air was too quiet. Raylan grabbed his old rifle and stepped out. The moons were full, casting long silver shadows across the fields. And then he saw them. 5 figures. They stood at the edge of the field right near the broken fence, not walking forward, not speaking, just standing there. Still as rocks. Rayla, and raised the gun halfway, unsure. Hello? He called out. No answer. Ja bad, he said louder. You here for that? Finally, one figure stepped forward, slowly, carefully. As the light hit her face, Raylan froze. She wasn't human. Her skin was pale green, her hair white and braided with thin wires. Her eyes glowed a soft gold. She was tall, thin, and wrapped in a long cloak, torn at the edges. We saw your ad, she said in a calm voice. We need shelter. Raylan lowered the rifle. Behind her, the other 4 stepped into the light. All of them were different. One with silver scars on her cheeks, another with arms like vines, one had no hair at all, and the last carried a child in a sling on her back. You're, Raylan struggled. Aliens, the first woman nodded. Widows, Raylan blinked. Widows? She spoke quietly. Our husbands were taken by war, our homes destroyed. We fled. We walked for days. No one took us in. Raylan looked them over. Tired eyes, torn shoes, empty hands. You can work? He asked. All 5 nodded. You eat? He added. We need little, the one with the child replied. Just safety. Raylan didn't speak for a long time. He looked back at the quiet house, the broken machines, the field choking with crops. Finally he said, 1 night, that's all. You can stay in the barn. The women looked at each other. No smiles, just nods. They followed him in silence. The barn was old, but dry. Raylan gave them blankets, a jug of water, and some bread. He noticed they didn't rush to eat. They shared, quietly, carefully. The child didn't cry once. As Raylan walked back to the house, Basco growled again. What is it, boy? Raylan asked. The dog stared at the barn, ears flat. That night, Raylan couldn't sleep. He sat near the window, rifle across his lap, staring at the barn. The wind had started again, but it carried a different scent. Strange, electric. He thought about their eyes. How still they were, how they didn't ask for pay. Didn't ask about him. Just shelter. He whispered to himself. Who did I just let in? At midnight, the lights in the barn flickered. Something glowed under the floorboards. The widow with golden eyes stood alone in the dark. Her hands touched the soil, and her lips moved in silence. A soft green light spread through the ground, and the vines began to grow. Morning on Taros 9 came with red sunlight, sharp and dry. The farm looked calm, but something felt different. Raylan walked out with his mug of hot calf. He looked at the barn. Silent, still, no movement. Basco the dog barked once and growled. Low again. Raylan grabbed his jacket and walked across the field. As he pushed open the barn door, he froze. The 5 alien widows were already working. They were cleaning tools, fixing the water pipes, and removing dead roots from the corner. The tall one with glowing eyes, the one who spoke last night, was stacking sacks of fertilizer, like they weighed nothing. "You're early," Raylan muttered. "We do not sleep much," the white-haired one replied. Her voice was soft, but her tone cold. The youngest widow, the one with the child, smiled slightly. "Your soil is very tired. It needs healing." Raylan frowned. "You can tell that just by touching it?" The widow nodded once. That made Raylan pause. No human could do that. Not even machines. Soil health needed full scans and deep testing. These women weren't normal refugees. They were something else. Later that day, Raylan watched from the distance. The widows moved together, almost silently. They didn't talk much, but they knew exactly what to do, where to dig, how much water to use, which vines were ready for pruning. Raylan's drones recorded the work. The AI system blinked with a warning. ERROR. Activity speed exceeds standard humanoid labor capability. Raylan raised an eyebrow. So now even the bots are confused. That night, he walked to the barn again. This time he brought extra food. He found them sitting in a circle on the floor, the child asleep between them. No lights, just a small glowing stone in the center. "Dinner," Raylan said, holding the tray. They thanked him. Quietly. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind all day. "Why did you really come here?" The widows didn't answer at first. Then the golden-eyed one finally spoke. "We lost everything. Our husbands were soldiers. When the war ended, they were hunted down. We ran. Ran from who?" Raylan asked. "From the ones who used them and then feared them." Raylan looked confused. "Used them how?" The widow looked straight at him. "Your kind humans trained them, gave them weapons, taught them to kill, and when they were no longer useful, your command ships erased our colonies." Raylan's heart sank. He had fought in the war. He knew what she meant. "There were orders," he said softly. "Targets, missions. We didn't know who lived there." "You didn't ask," she said. Not angry, just sad. The barn went quiet. Raylan cleared his throat. "So now what? You just hide and work farms?" The widow shook her head. "We don't hide, we wait." "For what?" She looked up. "For the soil to trust us again." Raylan didn't sleep again that night. At 3 a.m., the security drone pinned. Intruder detected. Raylan pulled on his boots and checked the screen. Someone, or something, was at the edge of the crop field. Moving slowly. Shimmering, he ran out with his rifle. Basco barked and followed. When he reached the field, the figure had vanished, but there was something left behind, a small black disc still warm. Raylan picked it up. Alien writing. Tracked. Tech. Something military. He took it back to the barn. As he entered, the widows were already awake, standing, waiting. "You were followed," the white-haired widow whispered. Raylan held up the disc. "What is this?" The golden-eyed one stepped forward. "It's a tracker. Yours?" he asked. "No," she said. "It was in the field. On my land." Her voice lowered. "They found us." Raylan felt cold all over. "Who?" She looked at him with eyes like dying stars. "The ones who burned our homes. They never stop hunting." Outside, the wind picked up, and deep underground, The green roots began to stir again. The soil had tasted blood once. It might do it again. Raylan didn't trust sleep anymore. He sat on the porch of his shack, rifle across his lap, eyes scanning the fields. Morning would come in 2 hours. But already, the soil felt strange, damp though there'd been no rain, and warmer than usual. The tracker was still on his table, blinking softly. The widows had not spoken much since last night. Only one thing echoed in Raylan's head: they found us. By sunrise, the widows were already working. Their movements were faster, more focused, almost like they were preparing for something. Raylan walked toward them, boots crunching over the cracked ground. The youngest widow, the one with the child, knelt beside a dying vine. She whispered something in her own language, then pressed her palm flat on the soil. Raylan stopped walking. The vine shifted. Green returned to its leaves. It stood taller, stronger. Raylan stared. How did you do that? She didn't answer. Just smiled, sadly. Later he called a meeting. They sat inside the barn again. The same circle, same glowing stone. This time, Raylan stood in the center. I want the truth, he said. Now. The golden-eyed widow tilted her head. You know the truth. No, Raylan said. I know pieces. Not why your hands make crops grow. Not why the soil glows when you touch it. Not why that tracker tech is from a military division that doesn't exist anymore. The silver-scarred widow leaned forward. What do you want from us, Raylan? He looked at them all. 5 women, alone, hunted, hiding something deeper than war stories. I want a deal, he said. They looked at each other. You work my land, he continued. You protect it, grow it, make it strong. In return, I protect you. I don't ask questions. But if anyone comes, I stand between you and them. Silence. Then the golden-eyed widow stood and walked up to him. She held out her hand. Do you understand what you're offering? Raylan nodded slowly. Shelter. She shook her head. Bond. What does that mean? He asked. She looked around. You've lived on this land. But it has never accepted you. You plant. It resists. You water. It refuses. Because this land remembers. Remembers what? She stepped closer. The war. The burning. The screams in the soil. Raylan's jaw clenched. I didn't do that. You followed orders, she said. Just like them. Raylan looked down at her hand. So how do I make peace? She nodded toward the ground. Touch it, with your skin, your blood. Raylan hesitated, then knelt. He removed one glove and pressed his hand into the soil. Nothing happened, but then the widow knelt beside him. She pressed her hand over his. The earth pulsed. A deep hum, like a sleeping creature waking. Vines trembled. Air thickened, images flooded. Raylan's mind, ships burning, planets crying, children running through fire. Then peace. A green world. Laughing voices. Dancing stars, he gasped, pulling back. Sweat ran down his face. What was that? The widow whispered. Memory. Of the land, you've seen it now. You carry it. That night, Raylan felt stronger, sharper. He walked through his fields and the vines leaned toward him. The soil longer resisted his footsteps. The land was starting to accept him, but far above Taros 9. A ship blinked into orbit, silent. Cloaked. Inside, a tall figure looked at the screen. The tracker signal was live. He smiled. Found you. Back on the farm, Basco growled again. But this time, he didn't face the barn. He stared at the sky. Night fell like a curtain of silence over Taros 9. But it wasn't peaceful. Raylan sat beside his window, every light in his shack turned off. Only the red glow of the tracker disc blinked faintly on the table, like a quiet warning. Outside, Basco growled low and steady, his fur stiff, eyes locked on the stars above. The dog had never acted this way before. Raylan activated. the aerial drone, and sent it skyward. Its camera pierced the darkness with infrared vision. The screen on his arm lit up. Something was watching. High above the clouds, nearly invisible, hovered a shape, smooth, dark-winged. Not a ship like any he had seen in the war. It didn't make sound, it didn't shine. It just floated, pulsing slowly like a living eye. Then another shape appeared beside it, and another. 3. Watching. Waiting. Raйл, and whispered, "They're already here." He ran to the barn. The door creaked as he burst in. The widows were not asleep. They stood around the child, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "They found us," Raylan said. "Ships overhead, 3 of them." None of the widows looked. Surprised. The golden-eyed one spoke calmly. "They've come sooner than we thought." Raylan snapped. "And you're just standing here?" The scarred widow stepped forward. "We are not helpless, farmer." Without warning, she raised her palm. A faint blue grid shimmered in the air around the barn, hidden tech embedded in the very walls. Old, ancient, alive. Raylan stumbled back. "What is this?" The youngest widow answered. "This land remembers us. It was once our sanctuary, before war. Before your kind came." Raylan felt the sting. "I said I'm not them." The golden-eyed one walked toward him. "Then prove it." Outside, the clouds split open. 3 silent crafts descended, shaped like black arrows, moving with no flame, no sound. But the soil reacted, trembled slightly under their presence. Vines curled protectively. The wind carried a strange whistle, not natural, not mechanical. Raylan pointed at the sky. "Do you have weapons?" The widows didn't move. The scarred one replied, "Weapons will not protect you from what hunts in the dark." He clenched his jaw. "Then what will?" She walked past him, into the open field. Her hands glowed faintly. She bent down and touched the dirt. The earth responded. Roots curled up like fingers. Grass shimmered. The very ground woke. Up under her touch, Raylan couldn't believe what he saw. "You're not just survivors," he whispered. "You're part of this planet." The widow looked at him. "We were born from this soil, and now it calls to us again." Suddenly, the first ship dropped lower. From its belly, a circular light beamed down. A scanner. It swept across the fields, hovering near the barn. Raylan raised his rifle. It felt useless now. The widows stood tall. They didn't run. They didn't hide. Then a voice came from the scanner, deep and hollow. "Surrender the survivors, or burn with them." Raylan stepped forward. "This is my land, my farm. I don't surrender anyone." Silence. Then the scanner spoke again. "Earth has no claim here. Your protection means nothing." Raylan took a breath, then said slowly, "This land remembers you too, and it hates what you did to it." The golden-eyed widow placed her hand on Raylan's shoulder. "You've chosen your side," she said. He nodded. "You chose me first." In that moment, the ground exploded, but not from bombs. From the soil rose tall green pillars, glowing from within, pulsing with light. The farm was no longer just a farm. It was a living system, responding to their bond. The ships backed off, scanners blinking rapidly. They were confused. Then one fired. A silent flash of red light screamed down toward the barn. But before it could hit, the green pillars bent like branches in the wind and formed a shield. The beam struck and vanished. No explosion. Just light against light. The farm had blocked it. Raylan looked at the widows. "You built this?" The golden-eyed one whispered, "No, we became this." Up in the sky, the ships hesitated. Then they began to retreat, slowly, warily. The watchers in the night had seen something they didn't understand, and they feared it. Back inside the barn, the child woke and looked up at Raylan. He smiled at her and whispered, "Go back to sleep, little one. Your roots are safe here." But even as peace settled over the field, Raylan knew this was only the beginning. They had won the night, but the war was far from over. The invaders did not return the next morning, but the sky was not the same. Thin black clouds curled above the farm, not from smoke, but from something alive. The air was heavy. The sun came late and left early. Raylan stood by the well, looking up. The wind didn't move the trees anymore. The land had gone quiet. The golden-eyed widow joined him. "They didn't leave," she said softly. "They just changed tactics." Raylan stared at the clouds. "What are they doing?" She didn't answer, but a moment later, the rain began. Thick, slow, black. Within hours, the crops began to suffer. The blue leaf vines curled in on themselves. The red root vegetables turned pale. The ground began to stink like metal and mold. Raylan dug his hands into the dirt and pulled up a fistful. It was wet, but not with water. It oozed a dark, oily slime. "What is this?" he shouted. The scarred widow came running. She dropped to her knees, grabbed the soil, and sniffed it. "Neurotoxic spores," she whispered. "They're trying to poison the land." Raylan's heart sank. "They're not attacking us. They're attacking the farm." The widow looked at him with hard eyes. "Because we've bonded with it. They know this land is alive now." The child began to cough. Her skin looked gray. The barn's walls, once glowing faintly, began to dim. The youngest widow wept silently as she rocked her daughter. "We have to do something," Raylan said. But the golden-eyed widow shook her head. "You are still too human. You see land as something you own. We see it as something we must become." Raylan stared at her. "Then show me how." That night, they took him deep into the root chamber. Beneath the barn was a hidden tunnel made of twisted wood, ancient stone, and green light that pulsed like a heartbeat. In the center, a seed core, a glowing crystal orb, half buried in living roots. "This is the heart of the land," the golden-eyed widow said. "It's what's left of the first grove, a world mind tree, burned long ago by your warships. But the core still breathes." Raylan stepped closer. The air buzzed like thunder under his skin. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. The widow looked at him. "Give it your blood." Raylan blinked. "Excuse me?" "Only one born outside the soil can awaken it fully. You are the first the land has accepted. Now it must know your pain, your truth." Raylan pulled a knife from his belt. No hesitation. He had seen enough, lost enough. He sliced his palm and placed it on the orb. It burned, not his skin, but his memories. He saw flashes, earth burning in war, him hiding in trenches, a child crying beside him. Orders shouted through static, a village on fire. Alien hands reaching out as he looked away. Raylan screamed. Then, light. Green, bright, gentle. The orb pulsed, and the roots responded. Land awoke. Outside, the fields began to change. Where black rain had fallen, now green roots pushed up, drinking the poison, turning it into light. The vines grew taller. The ground hummed. Even the air began to shift, cleaner, sharper, full of energy. The invaders in the sky took notice. One ship tried to descend again, but this time, the soil itself reached upward. Giant tendrils of glowing green energy, grabbing at the ships. Underside, Raylan stepped out of the barn, hands still bleeding, face glowing faintly. He raised his voice. "This is my land," he shouted. "And it fights back." The ship veered off, sparks flying. Later that night, Raylan sat beside the child. She was breathing better now. Her skin had color again. The youngest widow smiled for the first time. "You carry the grove now," she said. Raylan looked at his hands. The veins glowed faintly beneath the skin. He no longer felt tired, no longer felt weak. "What am I becoming?" he asked. The golden-eyed widow stepped beside him. "Something rare," she said. "Something this galaxy hasn't seen in a very long time." High above, In the orbiting ships, fear spread. "They've activated the seed core," the enemy commander said. "The soil has chosen its champion." Another officer whispered, "A human?" "No," the commander growled. "Something worse." The farm was changing. Where poison once spread, new life bloomed, glowing crops, breathing soil, vines that sang in the wind. But deep underground, something even older was waking. And Raylan could feel it inside him. He stood barefoot in the field at dawn, his hand wrapped in cloth, still pulsing with green light. Birds flew in strange patterns above him. The soil whispered his name. Raylan wasn't afraid anymore. But he wasn't sure he was still human. The golden-eyed widow approached quietly. "You are bound to this land now," she said. Raylan didn't look at her. "Then why do I still feel hollow?" She stepped closer, her voice soft. "Because the bond is incomplete. You've given blood, but not your will." Raylan frowned. "What does that mean?" She held out her hand. "You must accept the pact, with all 5 of us. Only then will the seed core fully awaken. Only then can we protect this place. Together." In the barn, the other widows stood in a circle. They had removed their cloaks. Their skin shimmered like crystal. They looked alien and ancient, nothing like the refugees who had once begged for shelter. Raylan entered slowly. He felt the weight of their eyes, their memories. "This isn't just a farm anymore, is it?" he asked. The scarred widow answered, "It never was. You just couldn't hear it." The youngest widow, child in her arms, stepped forward. "We carry the last fragments of a broken empire. Our husbands died to keep it alive, but we chose a different path." Raylan looked at the child, then at the seed core glowing beneath the floor. "What do I have to do?" They formed a circle around him. Each widow reached out, placing a hand on his chest, his back, his arms. They began to hum, a sound not from their throats, but from their bones, their memories, their pain. Raylan closed his eyes. The seed core pulsed below. Suddenly, Raylan's mind shattered open. He saw it all. Planets green and alive, ruled by peacekeepers. A galactic order that fed the stars instead of burning them. His own Earth arriving like a storm. Warships, fire, mining drills. The widows losing everything, except each other. Their pact, not of survival, but of restoration. And then, he saw himself, not just as a man, but as a seed. The ritual ended with a burst of green light. Raylan fell to his knees. His eyes glowed now, not just with light, but with understanding. He whispered, "I remember everything." The golden-eyed widow knelt beside him. "You are no longer just a farmer," she said. "You are the warden of the grove." At that same moment, the enemy ships returned. But this time, they didn't hide in clouds. They descended like predators. Claws out, weapons hot. On the lead ship, the enemy commander growled, "End this now. Burn the land." Raylan stood in the field, alone at first. But then the widows appeared behind him, cloaked in glowing robes. Hands raised. The farm responded. Vines curled into walls, trees bent into towers. Crops grew taller in seconds, forming a living defense. Raylan stepped forward and raised his hand. From the seed core, a tree of light burst into the sky, piercing clouds, wrapping the sun, casting green fire across the planet. The enemy ships hesitated. Their scanners failed. Their systems glitched. "This isn't a farm anymore," the golden-eyed widow whispered. "It's a weapon of life." One ship dared to fire. A red beam shot down, straight at Raylan. He didn't flinch. The beam hit and vanished into green mist. Raylan's voice rang out, deep and ancient. "You cannot burn what is already reborn." Then, he raised both hands, and the ground exploded with root spears, tearing into the sky. One enemy ship was struck, cracked in half, crashing far beyond the horizon. The rest backed away. Inside the lead ship, the commander's voice shook. "He's not human anymore." The child laughed softly as light danced around her. Raylan turned, his eyes soft. He walked back to the barn, now glowing like a temple. The widows stood beside him. The pact is complete, one of them said, but this is not the end. The scarred one added. Raylan nodded. I know, war is coming. The golden-eyed widow smiled, the first true smile he'd seen on her. And now, we are ready. The skies above Taros 9 turned dark green dot, not with clouds, but with roots. They reached into the heavens like fingers, glowing with life. The seed core had grown beyond the barn now. It stretched across the entire farm, transforming everything. It touched out the land was alive. And Raylan was its voice. He stood on the highest ridge, surrounded by the 5 alien widows, now fully awakened in their power. Their cloaks shimmered like leaves in the sun. Their bodies glowed with silent strength. They no longer looked like survivors. They looked like queens of the soil, and Raylan, once a broken farmer, once a forgotten soldier, now stood as the warden of the last grove. His boots didn't sink into the dirt anymore. The earth rose to meet his steps. In orbit above, the enemy commander stared at the screen. What is this? The young officer beside him whispered, a living biosphere. Combat adaptive, impossible without ancient tech. The commander growled. It was a farm. It's not anymore. The commander slammed his fist on the console. Prepare to land. We take it by force. 20 warships fell from the sky, sleek, armed, hungry. They didn't come alone. They brought machines, spider walkers, flame crawlers, drones that burned forests just by flying over them. They touched down near Raylan's fields, and they began their march. Raylan didn't flinch. He raised his hand. The land obeyed. Crops curled into barricades, trees twisted into towers, vines snapped into spears, and the widow stepped forward, each one calling on a different part of the grove. Scarred widow raised mountains. The youngest split rivers. The white-haired widow summoned storms. The child's mother turned mist into sharp wind. And the golden-eyed widow, she became a flame that fed the earth, not burned it. The first wave of machines entered the field. The roots swallowed them whole. No sound. No explosion. Just silence. As if the land had eaten them. Then came the soldiers, armored, trained, merciless. They opened fire, but the bullets never hit the air around. Raylan bent, like the farm itself refused violence. He walked through the field as if nothing could touch him. Return to your ships, he called out, his voice echoing across the valley. This land is claimed. The enemy commander stepped forward, armored in dark steel, helmet shaped like a beast. This land is infected, he growled. You are protecting weeds and witches. Raylan's eyes glowed. Then let the weeds fight back. The battle began. Roots tore through steel. The sky turned into fireflies of green light. Every tree became a sentinel. Every rock, a trap. Every breath from the soil was war. The widows moved like wind, fast, graceful, deadly. Together, they were a force no army could match. Raylan stood in the center of it all. Arms raised. And from the seed core, a storm was born. The enemy ships tried to flee, too late. The sky cracked open, and the grove tree rose, miles tall, its branches spreading across the horizon. It wasn't just alive. It was watching, and it did not forgive. Hours later, the battlefield was silent. Burning machines lay half sunken into the ground, already being reclaimed by the soil. The enemy commander, defeated and breathless, crawled toward Raylan. Who are you? He gasped. Raylan knelt beside him, placing a hand on the dying man's chest. I'm what grows after you're gone. That night, the widows planted 6 seeds, one for each fallen sister they had lost in the wars. The soil glowed gently, where the seeds were buried, and the child, now smiling, safe, helped water them. Raylan stood at the edge of the field, watching the new grove rise. The stars above seemed closer now, brighter. You could leave, The golden-eyed widow said softly. You've done enough. Raylan smiled. This is my home now. I don't need Earth. She looked at him. You are more than human. He nodded. I'm part of something old now, something green, something that never stops growing. As dawn broke, the farm stood proud. It was no longer just a patch of land. It was a kingdom of roots. A haven, a warning, a beginning.